Hi everyone, and welcome to the first of 5 short video clips that I'm going to be doing in collaboration with Cape Town Music Academy. So you guys have had some great input from some wonderful musicians about all kinds of different aspects about the music industry and about what it means to be a musician. And I thought that I would focus a bit on how do we work with our own mind. I think as musicians we've all had experiences of when it feels like your mind is your best friend. You know, it's doing everything that you want it to do and need it to do, and everything's going in the right direction, and it feels like there's just a natural kind of flow that you can get into and enjoy. But then there are also other times when it feels like mind is your worst enemy, and at those times it's almost as if mind creates a prison that we get stuck in, and it can be difficult to see our way out of that. So I'm going to be looking at 5 different ways that mind can do that, and I'm going to be borrowing from the field of cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT. So CBT calls these mind tricks cognitive distortions, because what happens is that the information that's coming in from the outside world is distorted by our own cognitive filters, our own mind filters, and then we end up with a story that is skewed to the negative. And the value in noticing this and seeing it is that before we become aware that it's happening, we tend to be so identified with our thoughts that we just take them to be telling us the truth, so we identify with them. And if we're constantly evaluating information in a negative way, and we believe that that's the truth, you can imagine what kind of effect that's going to have on your feeling state. It's just going to leave you feeling hopeless, demotivated, sad, maybe depressed, maybe anxious. Whereas if we can start noticing that these things are happening, then we can intervene at that point, and we can go, I know my mind has this tendency to do this, but I don't have to believe it. I can actually go in here and evaluate whether it's telling me something that's realistic or whether it's telling me something which is skewed towards the negative. And just becoming aware that it's happening means you're already more than halfway there, more than halfway to being able to work with it and to change things. So of course, we don't want to pretend that everything's just always positive and happy and fine. That's not going to solve the problem either. But what we do want to do is we want to create a relationship with our mind. We want to understand ourselves better. And through that self-awareness, we can start taking more control over the things that we can actually control. And the way that we interpret situations is actually one of those things. We don't have control over what's happening in the world, but we do have control over how we think about it and what attitudes we take towards it. Okay, so the first cognitive distortion that I'd like to focus on is one that's probably happening for quite a lot of people, because we're living in the time of lockdown, the time of Corona, the time of COVID-19. It's a very uncertain time, and there's a lot of anxieties about what's happening. And so this cognitive distortion is called fortune telling. So as the name implies, fortune telling is when we think that we can predict what's going to happen with certainty, and we know it's going to be bad. So as you can imagine, if you think you know what's going to happen in the future, you're sure what's going to happen in the future, and you know it's going to be bad, you can just imagine how that's going to impact on your motivation levels, on your mood, on the way that you feel about the future. And as musicians, some of the thoughts that might be coming up at the moment are things like, I'll never play gigs again. The music industry has been irrevocably destroyed by this illness. It'll be years before I get to play in ensembles again. How will I get together and record with people? It'll probably never happen. What's the use of practicing when music has become almost irrelevant? So if you've had any of those thoughts, if you've noticed any of those thoughts in your mind stream, and you've in a moment or as a permanent state tended to believe them and that they're true, then what you're experiencing has the flavor of fortune telling. So if you notice that these thoughts are present in your mind, then try and become aware of them and try and become aware of how they impact on you. How does it make you feel to believe that thought? How does it make you feel to identify with that future that you're imagining, but that you think that you can predict? The next step is to step in there and to become your own therapist. So if you notice that kind of thinking, how could it be different? Become interrogative. Play devil's advocate with yourself. How could the future be different to what you're currently thinking that it's going to be? I mean, the reality is that none of us can predict the future. I think very few of us could have predicted this, the situation that we're in now. And no doubt, in a few months' time, a few years' time, it'll be the same. We'll be saying, who could have predicted this? So, of course, I'm not saying don't think about the future, and I'm not saying don't plan for the future, and I'm not saying don't be realistic about the future. But what I am saying is start to notice how your thinking about the future influences how you feel. And if you're leaning towards overly negative interpretations of what's going to happen in the future, of course that's going to leave you feeling demotivated. It's going to leave you feeling hopeless, helpless. So become aware of those patterns of thinking. Challenge them, and then focus on what you can control. Focus on what is within your sphere of influence, and what can you do there? What can you do to make the future the way that you want it to be? Okay. So, good luck with that. Become your own therapist. Stay safe, and see you next time. Next time we'll be talking about another cognitive distortion, and this one is called mind reading. Till then, take care.